Okay, so the next thing we're going to do with our script here is utilize the send keys function to send the keystroke of 5 to the active application, which of course, hopefully by this time, is the Windows calculator. And then we're going to sleep again just to ensure that we've had enough time for the calculator to grab our input and then action it accordingly. Now on the next line here, we've wanted to press the plus key on our keyboard and enter in a plus symbol. So we need to enclose that in these curly braces like you see here. And this is also true for many other characters like the caret, the percent symbol, the backspace, tab, and so on. And I'll provide you guys with a list of these that you can download off the Winstructor website for your reference. Okay, so thus far we've entered into the Windows calculator 5 plus. Now again we're going to sleep and send some more keys to our application. Now on this line we've simply done two things at once. We've sent the value of 10 and the plus key. Now next we've sent the value of 12, and finally down here we've pressed the equals button. Now at this point, if my math is correct, we should have 5 plus 10 plus 12, which should equal 27. Okay, so let's run it. We'll go to our command prompt and we'll run calc.vbs. And as you can see, it has fired up the Windows calculator using run, and it's going to make sure that the calculator is the active window, and then it's going to send the keystrokes of 5 plus 10 plus 12, and that equals 27, as you can see. Now in case you missed it, I'll just go and run that one again, and we can see it adding up 5 plus 10 plus 12, and we equal 27. Now like I said, when you use send keys in particular, you really need to ensure that the application you're expecting to send those keystrokes to is actually the active application. Now if it's not, you could be in all sorts of trouble. So to illustrate this, just going to close calculator, we'll go back to our script. Now underneath our run statement here, I'm just going to comment out these next few lines of code. So we're not going to sleep or make sure that the Windows calculator is the active application. And then again at the bottom here, we're not going to sleep again. Alright, so I'm going to save this. We'll run our script one more time. Alright, well this time calculator launches, but our script remains the active application. So in the background, our script is sending keystrokes not to the Windows calculator like it should be, but as you can see here, it's been sending them to the command prompt. Now even though this affected our script from doing its proper job, the result here was basically harmless. But now you might understand what could happen if a critical application was open and your wonderful new script overwrote something it shouldn't have. The truth is, most experienced scripters really hate send keys because it can cause problems if the unexpected arises, but it is still useful when you're stuck for other solutions. Now again, just make sure that when you create your script, account for things that can go wrong. In fact, I do have another example of the same type of script here. I'll just go and open up. What have we got here? I've got another one here utilizing Notepad. Now in this example, we're going to simply open up Notepad like we did before with our calculator. We're going to make it active. And notice the use of untitled-notepad as the title bar. Remember I said you want to pass exactly what the name of the title bar of the active application is going to be. In this case, if we open up Notepad for the first time, that's what we're going to see in the title bar. Okay, well the next thing we're going to do is we're going to send a few lines of text. And one thing I want to point out here is that in order to force a new line of text, we'd want to press the enter key and send that to the application, and we can do that in two ways. We can either use this tilde key like you see here, or we could use the word enter in these curly braces. Either way, it's simply going to do the same thing. Okay, so let's run this. We'll go to our command prompt and we'll run Notepad. Oops, I've just got to get rid of this. As you can see, the problems that it's caused already. So we'll run notepad.vbs. And as you can see, it's quickly fired up the Windows Notepad application, and then it's populated with our 3 lines of text. Okay, well, I want to talk about something else for a moment. We've used the run statement to launch these two applications, the calculator and, of course, the Notepad application. But there is another way of executing applications, and that's using exec instead of run. So back to our scripting editor here, I've got another script here called exec.vbs. Now, unlike run, exec can only be used to launch command line applications. So in this example, we're going to first create the interface to our Wish object and then we're going to use exec to run the ipconfig command. Now the advantage of using exec over run is that exec allows you more flexibility over handling the output of the command line application. In fact, only command line applications can be launched with exec anyway, so if it's a GUI style application like the Windows calculator or Notepad, you'll use run instead. And this output that's returned by exec is then passed to our object, and that allows us to do something with it. Now as a comparison, using run doesn't grab the output of a command, which is why we'd be using exec here, but run can be used to write the output of a command to a text file, which you can use for more processing. Okay, well next we've set our object standard out to capture the output of the ipconfig command. And for those of you that don't already know, this standard out is simply the output that comes from running a process, and that's normally displayed on the screen. The other options that we would have here instead of standard out are standard in, which is ordinarily data that's entered from your keyboard or perhaps from a text file, and standard error, which are the errors produced from a process. Okay, well finally we're going to read all of the output in, and then we're going to simply show the output at the command prompt. Alright, well let's go and run this. We're just simply going to run exec.vbs, and as you can see, it's simply just reproduced the output of the ipconfig command. In fact, if I go and run ipconfig by itself, you'll see that the result is exactly the same. Okay, so you might be asking, well, I can get the output of the ipconfig command by scripting it, so I can do that using the ipconfig command, so what's the point? Well, I'll grant you this isn't a particularly useful example, but let's move on and build on this so we can use what we know to make this helpful to us later on. Okay, well, here I have another script which is almost the same as the last one with a few minor differences. In this script, the first 3 lines are the same as the previous one, however on the 4th line, we're using read line instead of read all to individually produce each line of output one at a time. Now this allows us to selectively write or skip entire lines of output if we like. So in this script we'll be displaying a bunch of lines from the ipconfig command's output, and there's 7 of these lines in total, and smack bang right in the middle of the output we're going to add in a line of our own. So if I go back to my command prompt here and we count these lines out, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines. So smack bang in the middle of this output here, I'm going to throw something in to this output of my own. So back to our script here, you can see that after this 7th line, we're going to simply echo out the time and date. And we're going to add that in to the output of the ipconfig command. Now finally at the bottom here, we'll be using a while not statement, which simply uses the at end of stream. Now I could have simply continued on using the read line code that we have above for the remaining lines of output, but this loop is a better way of performing the same task since we don't have to know how many more lines to expect. This loop will simply keep showing the additional lines of output from the ipconfig command until there aren't any more. So what we're really saying here with this loop is that while the output is not finished, then keep showing it to us and display it on the screen. Now finally at the bottom here we use when to finish off and close a while not statement. Okay, well let's go and run this script and let's see how it differs from the last one. So I'll go to my command prompt, we'll run exec2.vbs. Okay, and as you can see, it's also reproduced the output of the ipconfig command. However, this time we've squeezed into the results this new line which is showing the time and the date, and that's certainly not a feature of ipconfig. So this type of script could be useful to customize the output of commands so that they can produce output that you might be able to utilize better in other applications or reports or whatever you like. Now we could also remove lines of this altogether by simply coming here and changing read line to skip line, and again that can clean up the output so it looks more like you want it to. Alright, in this video we've taken a look at the WshShell object, which lets you work with pop-up message boxes that allow you to produce scripts where you can let the user control the flow of where your script goes. We saw how it's easy to read and write to the registry using WshShell, and how to run and manipulate external programs and command line applications straight from VBScript. Now in the next video in this series, we'll be taking a look at another object, the WshNetwork object, which can grant your scripts the ability to access remote objects like network shares and printers.